I'm terrible at following through with my business plans. Check this out. 5 days ago, I got 13 emails from Google, all informing me about a different domain name that's about to expire. That's 13 domains that I bought in a single day almost a year ago, representing 13 ventures that we should have started by now, but just haven't. Why? 1. I have shiny object syndrome. Maybe you're watching this because you're there too. You have too many ideas and more just keep coming. You give up what you're working on just to jump on a new opportunity. 2. I have a bit of analysis paralysis. You ever think about a decision until you've literally talked yourself out of it? Keep researching long enough and you'll always find a reason that it's a bad idea. 3. I just don't know what to focus on. Maybe you have one idea, maybe you have several. Maybe time is passing you by and you don't have any real tangible ideas. But either way, no matter what, you're afraid of putting your time into the wrong thing. Time is your most precious commodity after all. The conventional wisdom out there on YouTube and elsewhere in the business world is that those are carnal urges that need to be tamed, like a lion's thirst for meat. Stick to one business at a time, commit to it full time. And if it's successful, then you can move on to a second business.
Focus on one thing and one thing only.
In this video, I'm going to break down why I think that's the wrong approach entirely, how your shiny object syndrome can actually be used to your advantage, and what tools and business hacks I use to manage 7 businesses at the same time. Hey, my name is Christian, but you can call me Lo. The reason that people will tell you to stick to one business at a time is because if you're doing everything yourself, you'll likely spread yourself too thin, and that's just a fact. It's not opinion, and it's one that's hard to argue against. Creating passive income takes time. Building a business takes time. Being a freelancer takes time. It's also a fact that great ideas fail and shitty ones turn to gold all the time. Have you ever heard of the pet rock?
Pet rocks have been adopted and pampered by owners.
And by Christmas, we'll have sold well over 1 million units. Then I'll be out of the rock business and into some other insane scheme.
I wish I hadn't. I'm not saying that some ideas aren't better than other ones, but what I am saying is that especially at the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey, you just can't predict which of your business ideas is going to be the massively successful one that launches you into a career of serial entrepreneurship. The common one business at a time is really bad advice for at least 3 reasons. 1, successful people often have multiple businesses. 2, this advice stops you from jumping on good opportunities. And 3, it tries to squeeze you into a mold that you just might not fit in. Not everyone is the same. We're spoon-fed the one business advice by every business guru out there, yet most of them don't actually follow that advice. Even Y Combinator, which is a startup accelerator program, but also counted among the most successful venture capital firms in the world. They tell the founders of their companies that they need to be 100% dedicated to those companies, but they actually have a separate motto for themselves. Place a lot of small bets. By placing multiple bets, they increase the chances that they will be successful. Statistically, so will some of the businesses that they invest in, and that's all they need. I've poured thousands of dollars and years of my life into this one business at a time model, into businesses that ultimately didn't work out. And that may have made a lot of sense back when I was 18, 19 years old, but the older I get, the harder it is to take those kinds of chances and waste years of my life. And if you're older than me, you also have a lot to lose when your business inevitably fails. And I'm not going to mince words here. Statistically speaking, it will. Even 90% of Y Combinator's startups fail. The official definition of shiny object syndrome is the tendency to continually chase new trends, new opportunities, and new ideas without evaluating their benefit. You can do all sorts of calculations based on estimates, which are ultimately just made up numbers used to justify yourself one way or another. You can even come up with a 5-year business plan and even pitch it to investors. You can overanalyze until the cows come home, but I'm sorry, you can't evaluate the benefit of your business idea without trying it out. I think anybody who has been starting businesses for a long time knows that there's just too much that you don't know. The fact that you're jumping on a new trend, on a new opportunity, as it becomes available to you, just might be the thing that makes you successful. When my wife and I started Pick Your Photo, which is our photography business, it was hours between the time we thought of going and taking photos at college graduation ceremonies to the point when we were in the middle of the crowd actually offering our services to graduating seniors. We've adapted over time since then, but if we had waited, graduations would have been over. If we had stopped to evaluate our options, we could easily have talked ourselves out of it. And if we'd actually gone and failed then and there, all we wasted was an afternoon, not weeks of analyzing whether or not it was a good opportunity. And that's true with anything you try. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you do something like this with something that costs your life savings, but these minimum viable products and the little side hustles that attract most of the people who are watching this really don't cost that much. The faster you can succeed or fail, the faster you can either get it out of your mind completely or double down when it succeeds. And that's what we did with Pick Your Photo. We doubled down. Again, most of your ideas will fail. That's just reality. There's no need for each failure to cost you years off your life. Novel idea, I know. Not everyone is the same. Many people will call their shiny object syndrome a lack of focus. They will use it as an excuse as to why they're not productive or organized. They get frustrated with themselves, or maybe you get frustrated with yourself, when the real reason that you're not focused is because your brain isn't wired for that conventional advice. The one business at a time advice. I'm not passionate and cannot focus on taking photos of Instagram influencers. I'm not passionate and cannot focus for very long on web design or web development, yet I have 2 successful businesses centered around those 2 things. And it's taken me a long time to accept it, but I've finally realized that my passion, what allows me to stay focused, is variety. It doesn't matter what it is, I get bored eventually. I stay focused by changing things up, by switching my tasks. Maybe you're the same as or similar to me. Maybe you enjoy moving from one project to the next. Maybe that's even what gives you fulfillment. I mean, is there something so wrong with that? When did we all decide that every entrepreneur needs to follow the same path? There is no magic formula, and anybody who tells you otherwise is simply wrong, but I digress. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've not had a job since I was a teenager working at a fast food restaurant. Various businesses were always up and down, and I was not what you might call a successful entrepreneur until I built the infrastructure to work on multiple businesses simultaneously. This is in no small part due to my personality, but I do think that there are more people whose brains are wired like mine and my wife's than there are people whose brains are wired like what a traditional entrepreneur is. At a certain point, I realized that I couldn't wait for a business to fail before starting the next one. And at a certain point, I realized that my business didn't have to turn a profit every month of every year. If I had a backup, I could spread out the cost, I could spread out the risk, and I could spread out the resources. Businesses that were obviously connected could benefit one another. Like, for example, my stock video production company, Bullet Productions, was logically connected to my photography business, Pick Your Photo, and they share software. If you've ever heard of the investor Marcus Lemonis, he talks all the time about how his companies are customers of each other. They piggyback on one another's success, and that's exactly how it should be. If you want something business related to binge on, make sure to go check out The Profit. It's Marcus Lemonis' show, and it is incredible. I mean, it just walks you through like total business transformation. So starting and running multiple businesses at the same time is difficult. Leaving an existing business to jump on a new opportunity can be dangerous. But there are tools and methods that I use to simplify that process, to create multiple streams of income, to automate my business, and to work from literally anywhere, even a forest. Number 1, you have to think in systems and breathe efficiency. Whether you're trying to create your first little side hustle or starting your 10th business, lots of things can be batched together. Most online businesses, for example, would benefit from a social media strategy. Instead of looking for a great photo and then coming up with a great caption every single morning, you can easily use a tool like later.com. Set aside an entire day. You can plan and schedule all of your Instagram posts weeks in advance. Set aside the next day to write and schedule all of your blog posts. That way you have the rest of the week to focus on your product, to focus on your customers without being bogged down by the minutia of the business. This is how my company makes YouTube videos. This is how my company continues writing blog posts and contributing to its SEO. We batch and schedule everything as far as we're able to. Number 2 is use virtual assistants. This is going to be simultaneously the cheapest and the most expensive thing in this video. Most expensive because it's probably going to be way more expensive than any piece of software that you buy for your business. But it's actually going to be cheaper because it's going to save you so much time. And I mean, how much is your time worth? Be honest with yourself. A lot of the conventional advice out there on YouTube and elsewhere would have you take on a virtual assistant or any type of employee only once you can't handle the work yourself. I think you should find one right at the very beginning. I would even recommend my brother uses a VA to fill out hundreds of job applications while he goes and works DoorDash or whatever it is he wants to do. If you have a VA who's doing work that you would otherwise do, and you could possibly make more than about $4 an hour, how is that not worth it? How could you not justify that? All of the virtual assistants that I hire can do at least one job better than I can, and a couple of them can do pretty much everything better than I can. I build the systems and the infrastructure that I mentioned earlier in the video, but they do most of the legwork, and this is the main reason reason that I'm able to manage 7 businesses at a time. Entire companies have been built by virtual assistants. Mine, for example, but even much more successful businesses. You probably know the brand Huel, and you might even know its founder. He's well known for founding Huel, but before he started, he actually had another company called mypromotionalvoucher.org. And I know that's a mouthful. The infrastructure and the SEO were built entirely by his virtual assistant. That business later sold for what he calls under $10 million. 3 is to use modern tools to solve modern problems. And first thing I'm gonna do is list all of the software that I use across all of my companies. I'm gonna go through each one individually and tell you what you can use them for or what I use them for, but first I'm gonna go ahead and just list them. First I have Canva Premium, and then Google Sheets, Google Docs, Trello, Integormat, and Google Drive, plus a third-party app that I use with Google Drive called Drive Uploader. Canva handles the bulk of our design work. Yes, myself as well as a bunch of my staff members know how to dive into Photoshop, as well as the rest of the Adobe suite. But we've found Canva Premium is the best tool for the job like 90% of the time. It's just more simple, it's faster. That is, of course, until you need to do something really complicated or bulk edit photos, something like that. We even use it to edit some of our instructional videos for my company Learning Tale. And everything can be viewed and edited across all devices. You'll notice that this is a common trend. We really like things being in the cloud. It makes everything easier. The next thing is Google Docs, and obviously Google Docs is kind of like Microsoft Word, except everything is in the cloud, everything is searchable and shareable. My process documents on how I run the business, as well as do lots of repetitive tasks like my Instagram outreach campaigns, they're all housed here on Google Docs. It has revision control, so you can see every version of every document that I've ever created, and it's universal. You can use it on any device. Okay, next one is Google Sheets, and of course it's related to Google Docs. It's kind of like Excel in the same ways that you can do budgeting and you can use formulas, you can keep track of emails and that sort of thing. It's just a spreadsheet, right? But again, like Google Docs, everything's in the cloud, it's searchable. Everything's easier when it can be used across all devices, across the whole company. And it even connects to the next tool, which is Integormat. Now, Integormat automates everything. I've had Integormat do thousands of different automated tasks, but to give an example of one, Pick Your Photo, my photography company, ran like a drawing for a free photo shoot. When a user entered into the contest, Integormat would send them a thank you email, then it would send me a notification that we had a new entry, then it would insert them into a Google Sheets spreadsheet for contact if they won for the drawing, right? Then it would add them to our email list for marketing purposes, just auto-connecting all of these little pieces that used to be independent of each other. You can use it to automatically upload a photo to Instagram every day. You can use it to notify you when an employee marks a task as being complete. Use it to automate a lot of the admin work that is actually being done by a person even today across the world. And it also connects directly with the next 2 tools, Trello and Slack. Now, Trello is a project management system that lets an entire team piece out the tasks in any given project. I have one, for example, for this video. In the first column, I'll put a list of video ideas. When I'm done, I'll have a discussion with my wife and business partner about the concept of the video and like what the content should be. I'll record that and upload the audio file as an MP3, and I will move the task into the ready for scripting column. Integormat will send a notification to my scriptwriter saying this one is ready to be worked on. She will write the script, and when that's finished, she will move it over into the ready for filming column. I usually go and work on the script myself for reasons that I won't go into, but this does still reduce my script writing time by like 75%. Then I film the video, upload the footage to Google Drive, and I move that video to the ready for editing column. My video editor will get a notification saying it's ready, and he will edit that down into a finished video. Of course, according to additional instructions that I give him. This all makes it sound a little bit more complicated than it really is, but what it allows us to do is it allows us to specialize in a particular task. I can work through conceptualizing 5 videos at a time, for example, with my wife. My scriptwriter can spend all of her time writing multiple scripts consecutively and really like fully dive into the material. Now, my video editor, he's got his work cut out for him no matter what, but he too will never have a shortage of projects because there's always a list of videos that are ready for editing. So he can just continue consecutively going and going and going again. Makes it so that every video that we work on is sort of like an assembly line of greatness. No one is waiting for anyone else to finish, they're just moving on with their job. And we're always working multiple projects at the same time. And by batching my own tasks, by minimizing my own involvement in each video, in each project, I'm freed up to manage, organize, and plan my other businesses. businesses, my other products, deal with my other customers. The next tool is Slack. And I've already touched on it twice, I know, but more than anything else, it's a communication tool. I used to use WhatsApp, but Slack just like flows seamlessly with everything else. I can automate notifications using Integormat and Trello. I can send messages, make phone calls, share files, decide what's private and what's public. I can invite little assistants or my virtual assistant agent clients as guests. And perhaps most importantly, I can keep communication about different businesses separate. So there's very little confusion about like what's being discussed. That's how this whole thing, that's what we're talking about, right? Is multiple businesses at the same time. The last tool that's basically ubiquitous across all of my companies is Google Drive and a third-party app called Drive Uploader. Each one of my clients and each one of my businesses has its own folder where all files are backed up and organized. I can retrieve anything that we've created in the history of our relationship with the business or the client. This is obviously more important for some companies than others, like my photography company, which basically runs in the cloud. I have 40 terabytes of data, but it can be useful, and it's proven useful for all of them. I would have to make some really hard decisions if I was forced to part with that. Of course, I double back up footage and photos on Google Photos, where I can search anything by date. It recognizes faces, and I can give those faces names. I set locations to all of the videos and photos so that I can always retrieve photos and videos from a certain location, from a certain period of my life, if I need to retrieve that for a video that I'm making, for example, like this one. So those 13 domains that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, they will be businesses in due time. I currently have 7 businesses in various stages of development and success. This video would probably be like 10 hours long if I were to like just create a manual for every process, every system, all the infrastructure that I have for everything. But the important message here is that other than this YouTube channel, other than the virtual assistant agency connected to it, Little Assistants, those businesses are now more or less running on their own. When you build the right infrastructure, when you find the right team, stepping away from the day-to-day operations, whether it's because you just feel like working on something else or because you just feel like going and traveling the world, becomes a lot easier. Thank you guys so much for watching this video until the end. If you're ready to start your business, or 10, I highly recommend that you get a virtual assistant or 2 to help you out. You can find them on Upwork or Freelancer, but the process of finding the right one is really difficult, to say the least. And that's why I started Little Assistants, where you can hire trained and vetted virtual assistants straight from my team. That's it. Peace out.